Welcome back. Well, I'm standing amid scenes that I can scarcely believe. The city that I grew up in looks like it's been hit by a giant wrecking ball. And it's not just the buildings that have been wrecked, of course. This time, it's lives too. Dozens and dozens are dead, and many more are missing. This is how the disaster unfolded. A region that was struggling to its feet again after all it had been through. Then at 9 minutes to 1, ordinary Tuesday lunchtime, the earth roars louder, more violently than before. Because although this was smaller on the Richter scale than the big quake of September, this time around the fury was centred much shallower, only 5 kilometres deep, and much closer, just 10 kilometres from the city, near Littleton. It hit like a bomb. It hit like a blitzkrieg of bombs. In the moments afterwards, chaos, confusion, fear. People desperate to find their loved ones.
Have you seen Jill next door? She's still in there.
Amid the devastation, the scramble for safety, such as it is. This woman, perched atop the rubble, but seemingly uninjured, clings for her life.
Just stay away from the edge.
The Pine Gould building below her, a crumpled ruin.
4 floors of staff, so there could be anywhere about 200 people possibly in the building.
Nobody yet knows how many. Insurance brokers, financial advisors.
Guys, just come right back, mate.
With aftershocks still coming every few minutes, Christy Clements must be terrified. The fire service with its crane inches to the top, and she's carried delicately to safety. But how many more people remain trapped in here and elsewhere?
There's a lot of people here.
Already the city has run out of ambulances, the need far greater than any city could cope with. There are images we're used to seeing from some foreign city, not one of our own. At the press building, the roof has collapsed entirely, leaving workers pinned under their desks, unable to move or even see each other. Loss of buildings paling in comparison, even such celebrated landmarks as the Christchurch Cathedral.
You know, the buildings are buildings. The really important thing are the people, and we just don't know if there are people under this rubble. I fear there are.
They're everywhere, all over central Christchurch, now crumbled, contorted ruins.
We crawled through our lunchroom to our fire escape, but it had all collapsed, so we were just on a concrete edge of the building, and then the fire truck's ladder helped us down.
But Pine Gould is clearly one of the worst.
I think there's about 10 people still from my work in there.
And then a further shake.
Another quake. Another quake. Yep.
And just 20 minutes after the last, one more.
We've just got another aftershock now. It's just shaking away. It wasn't too bad, but it's certainly rocking around.
Yet in spite of the ruins, a seemingly barren wasteland of hopelessness can't keep optimism down.
Yeah, New Zealand's one of the best countries in the world for this sort of thing, so, you know. Does anyone know what magnitude it was?
With not enough emergency services at hand, and the hospital overflowing, the injured are laid out on the grass. The effects on infrastructure are starting to become apparent. The airport closed except for emergency flights. Trains are stopped. Phone networks are jammed. There are widespread power outages.
Sorry, it's overloaded, but I'll keep trying, okay? I'll keep trying.
Streets are inundated, and with no telling when the next one will hit, the grim march from the central city commences.
I just want to reiterate, as the Prime Minister did today in Parliament, the government's total commitment to doing every single thing we can.
4:30 in a live press conference from the bunker at the Beehive. 2 urban search and rescue teams will be flown to Christchurch. The Australians offer specialised personnel. Other international offers of help and expertise flood in. New Zealand leads the world's news once more.
Top stories of these. A powerful earthquake hits the New Zealand city of Christchurch. People are dead.
And then suggestions that it could be oh so much more devastating. The unfathomable words.
Reports now that the suburbs of Brighton and Littleton are unlivable.
But it's impossible for cameras to get there at this stage. The rescue efforts seem for now concentrated on the CBD. The 17th story of the Forsyth Bar building. 24 people are being rescued. And the inevitable fear after an earthquake. Fire. The CTV building, Canterbury Television, is destroyed and the flames break out amongst the rubble. One person is confirmed dead, but witnessing the devastation, it seems incredible that a woman is rescued. Just after 5 o'clock, 4 or so hours after the earthquake struck, a state of emergency is declared in Christchurch. Triage centres are set up all over the city. This one in Latimer Square are inundated with the injured, the despairing. And as our cameras find their way further afield, more widespread damage becomes evident. Historic Christ College has collapsed in parts. Thankfully, nobody here is injured. The wreckage of nature's ferocity even more apparent from the air. As news comes in that there are at least 30 trapped in the Pine Gould building, rescuers work frantically to get them out. But already there's one confirmed fatality. With those who have escaped unhurt from elsewhere finding refuge in Hagley Park, which itself shows profound scars. And for the first time, the true toll begins to emerge.
So the advice I've had so far is that 65 people have lost their lives. We can't rule out death toll climbing from there.
It's inevitable. With confirmation there were people in the spire of the Christchurch Cathedral when it fell. First pictures begin to come through from the air over Littleton and Sumner. Houses teetering on the brink. Some consumed. A school on the edge of destruction. A drawn Deputy Prime Minister fronts the latest press conference from the Beehive.
We've also taken up an offer from the Australians for the assistance of further search and rescue personnel.
The world is recognising our tragedy. The United States and the United Nations have also offered assistance. The ongoing effort isn't just for those alive and trapped. It's for the recovery of bodies. At the devastated CTV building are being carried out in their numbers. As reports begin to come through that the death toll has risen drastically.
We have unconfirmed reports, and I should stress these are unconfirmed reports, that the current death toll of 65 could rise to 2 to possibly 400.
With unknown numbers still unaccounted for, the rescue effort steps up during the night. At every turn of the road, fears of more injuries or deaths. Police want nobody out here. Roads that are not impassable are dangerous. With emergency services already stretched to breaking point, more fires.
No, just turn that off.
But the watery mud of liquefaction is everywhere, hampering the effort, and water mains are broken.
Very major problem. As you can appreciate, the main down Colombo Street has no water in it, and nor are the side streets, and we have to bring tankers in to fight this fire. And at the moment, I think we've got it under control.
Nervous residents spend a sleepless night plagued by aftershocks, at least 23 since the main quake. What hasn't come down might still. 950 people camp out at welfare centres. They have nowhere else to go. If yesterday was our darkest, the new day dawns with an overwhelming sense of apprehension about what it might hold. Civil Defence Director John Hamilton manages the crisis from the bunker beneath the Beehive, fronting the media to keep the country informed. At least 100 people are still trapped at 6 major sites. Nobody knows how many are alive, how many are dead.
I can't tell you how deeply upsetting it is for us to be losing people at this time. and especially 6 months after that first earthquake. We've had 6 months of repairing, we've had 6 months of pulling our city back together, and in a matter of seconds, everything that we have done has been wiped out.
There are tales of hope to keep up the spirits of rescuers. Pulling 8 people from the devastated Pine Gould building overnight. They're going to extraordinary lengths to save the trapped. A story emerges of one woman having both legs amputated in order to be freed. And they've been hearing tapping from within the rubble. Superintendent Dave Cliff is running the operation.
We've tried to get it as quiet as possible overnight so we could hear tapping. The urban search and rescue dogs have been out so they can look for people that are trapped as well. Everything we possibly can do to get those people who are trapped released is our absolute priority. Look, I realise that it's sounding harsh. We know there are individuals who have deceased within the rubble. And look, it is tragic and there's no other word for that, but our priority has to be with the living and rescuing those who could potentially have survived. This will be, the story of the greatest tragedy and also the greatest survival stories. People have walked out of buildings with virtually nothing but a scratch, and others have had the most horrendous injuries, but it really does go from one extreme to the other.
In a disaster, death affords little dignity. The authorities can only try their best. Many bodies are now secured at a temporary morgue at the Burnham military camp. Others lie covered up on the streets, while the focus is on survivors. It's more sombre evidence, if it's needed, of the scale of this tragedy. Everyone in the country, it seems, knows someone affected in some way. My own brother helped pull a woman from a bus crushed under the rubble.
Her leg was trapped under the seat of the seat in front of her, which had an old guy on there sitting in that seat, and he had already passed. He was just completely squashed. We just sort of grabbed the side of the bus and pulled it away and tried to lift it out so other people could get her leg out. I mean, they were so good at what they were doing. They already had a splint on her leg and got her out through the window on that side of the bus.
I guess it's one thing to appreciate that it's going to be bad, but to come face to face with the reality of it.
I mean, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. A lot of shakes, as you know. You were here in town, but I mean, just seeing the old fella's face all the time, and I mean, when you're there, you sort of think about your own family.
It's an impact that will be widely felt. Those who have seen too much, some trained to deal with it, most just having to cope. 9:30 this morning, and Cabinet meets to decide whether to upscale the response to a national state of emergency.
You can see daylight.
10:30, and one more person has been pulled alive from the pancaked Pine Gould building, and plans to save another.
We've got one live victim. The USAR teams, we've got police, ambulance on scene. We are making way into the building to try and extricate the lady. She's conscious, she's talking. She was able to give us a telephone number. We don't know the full extent of her injuries, but obviously she's in there, she's alive, and we're doing everything we can to get that rubble and concrete and twisted steel out of the way.
Come up and see if you can see a top level.
But the scale of the recovery effort needed becomes more apparent with confirmation of the death toll rising further.
We've got 55 bodies in the temporary morgue. Now, those individuals are yet to be identified in terms of confirming who they are with loved ones, but 55 bodies. We have another 20 bodies that we're aware that are yet to be returned to the morgue.
But there are 300 reported missing, uncontactable, which doesn't mean necessarily that they're injured or dead, just status unknown.
The earthquake that struck the Canterbury region at 10 to 1 yesterday has wreaked death and destruction on a dreadful scale. There is no reason that can make sense of this event, no words that can spare our pain.
11:30, the Prime Minister declares a national state of emergency.
We are witnessing the havoc caused by a violent and ruthless act of nature. Many people have lost their lives, families have lost their cherished loved ones, mates have lost their mates. These deaths are the greatest loss.
The cost of this carnage is inestimable. Even the cost that must be eventually counted too much to comprehend right now. The several billions of dollars, of course. Then there is the unfathomable, the still unknown number of lives lost, and the inconceivable toll on the living, the lucky to be alive.